Let's talk about the price impact of tariffs. A 5% tariff on imports might sound small, but in 2018, when the Trump administration placed a 5% tariff on steel and aluminum, the price of washing machines spiked 12%. Why? Because that 5% didn't stay 5%. It multiplied its way through the supply chain, as multiple components each had their own 5% impact. So let's start with what actually happened historically. In 2018, tariffs were put on steel and aluminum. While those metals make up only 5% of the machine's actual cost, manufacturers raised the price of their washing machines around 12% in that first year. And according to a Federal Reserve study, this cost the U.S. consumer an extra $1.5 billion that fiscal year. So why that disproportionate increase? When we think about tariffs, it's really easy to think about it just in the sense of the raw materials that are being used in that single good. But the entire supply chain is impacted too. When steel gets 5% more expensive, it's not just about the raw material itself. If we look at a factory producing steel, it has many steel components as well. It might have steel hammers, it might have steel drums and frames that are used in the production that need to be repaired over time. The truck that is shipping on might have steel components, and the next time a truck is built is going to be at a higher cost. Even the motor supplies and the circuit boards that are used in the production of that steel itself are going to have higher input costs. So if each stage of input is adding its own 5% increase in price, you get these exponential increases. So while the initial tariff might say 5%, the sticker shock that we have could be 2 or 3 times that. Now let's talk about some macroeconomics. If we're looking at the current tariffs that are broad-based across every single industry, there's even more compounding effect to be had. Automotives, appliances, rubber that makes tires, the gasoline that goes into a car, replacement parts for that car, the safety vests that a manufacturing company wears, our textiles that we get from overseas. Every single cost that is within our supply chain is going to be going up. Look at this great chart from Citrini Research, where they took various industries and broke them down how a 10% baseline tariff can actually impact the sticker price. You'll see that even at the 10% tariff, which is the lowest of the tariffs that were implemented by the Trump administration, we have industries that are nearly at a 30% increase in actual price because of all of the steps in the process that each have their own compounding impact on the good. So how do we begin to model what the actual price impact to the US consumer could be from these blanket tariffs? We don't. That nothing of this scale has ever happened before. And there are so many industries that basically every step of a supply chain is going to be impacted. The model you see here from Citrini Research, I think, is one of the best that I've been able to find in the past few days that breaks down where we can kind of expect that 10% tariff to net out in those industries. But that's also with the assumption that there's no additional background inflation, no supply shocks, no other challenges along the way. And as we know, on many countries, including China, we're putting tariffs upwards of 54%. So if by April 9th, Trump hasn't backed down on these tariffs, it's reasonable for us to expect that when they go into effect, we're going to see a 2 to 3 month lag period where prices may not change all that significantly. But as resupply happens, as vendors figure out their new pricing for products, as margins are reevaluated, we're going to see that price begin to creep up. And it's likely that it will be a multiple of the tariff that's applied, not the percent we see. So a 54% tariff could quickly become 3, 4, 5 times the price. Tariffs aren't a political thing. They're a practical thing. And we have to carefully analyze every step of the supply chain to understand how they're actually going to impact your wallet. Even when we talk about a 5% tariff, which seems small, it can have a major impact on the price that consumers are paying. And that's part of why these blanket tariffs with such large numbers could be so devastating both to the US and global economy.